South Korea has been waking up to North Korea's missile launches quite frequently these days. And this morning was no exception, as North Korea has launched 2 projectiles into the East Sea, marking the 4th round of missiles in about 2 weeks' time. This while there are no clear sign of a resumption of Pyeongyang-Washington working-level nuclear talks, a meeting that was highly anticipated since the historic Kim-Trump handshake at the DMZ in June. Tonight, we go in-depth on North Korea's latest provocations and the fate of nuclear negotiations with Dr. Bong Young-shik, researcher at Yonsei University Institute for North Korean Studies. Welcome to the program.
Very pleased to be here.
So North Korea's foreign ministry, following its missile launch this morning, announced a statement slamming South Korea for conducting joint military drills with the U.S., calling the joint military drills a preemptive strike against simulations of preemptive strikes against North Korea. It also said the drills are in violation of the inter-Korean military agreement. What do we need to read from this announcement?
Well, if we remember the first ever summit meeting between Chairman Kim Jong-un of North Korea and South Korean President Moon Jae-in, which took place last year on April 27th, Kim Jong-un, with a big smile, promised President Moon Jae-in that he would not be disturbing President Moon Jae-in to wake up early in the morning because of North Korea's test firing anymore. And for all 6 missile tests so far since May, North Korea conducted the drills early in the morning, around 5 a.m. So the message is very clear that North Korea does not like what South Korea has been doing in terms of inter-Korean relations or its management of a security partnership with the United States. So it's a message sent by Pyongyang that North Korea does not regard South Korean government as an objective and effective mediator between North Korea and the United States. And South Korea needs to be a true stakeholder, meaning that South Korea has to side with North Korea for advancing all the agendas to North Korea's favor.
It looks like North Korea's message is very clear. The analysis is still ongoing, but South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff analyzed that the projectiles fired this morning are likely to be short-range ballistic missiles. Why is North Korea sticking to short-range ballistic missiles now?
Because North Korea has to consider 2 things. One is the use of ballistic missile technology for any test firing or launching activities, which would constitute the violation of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1874 and 2397, which prohibits North Korea from conducting any activities related to ballistic missile technology. But at the same time, Trump administration has been downplaying the significance of the 6 test firing missiles by North Korea recently, saying that these are all small missiles, and all countries would do missile tests for short-range missiles. So Trump administration wants to maintain the chance for working-level negotiations and communication with North Korea. So North Korea is trying to, take advantage of this gap between Trump administration's desire to maintain the personal relationship between top leaders and the opportunity for meaningful denuclearization negotiation on one hand, and the United Nations Security Council resolutions and international communities, the attitude that criticizes North Korea's provocations.
South Korea said North Korea's missiles fired last week were short-range ballistic missiles, but North Korea argued otherwise. North Korea claimed that they were not missiles, but instead a guided rocket system. Why the contradicting claims?
That may not be contradicting claim because these days, because of the advancement of the military technology, the difference between rocket missiles and artilleries and missiles have become narrower and narrower. So it is very difficult for the target countries to identify exactly what kind of test firing North Korea conducted. And it is very important for South Korea and its security partners not to be too rattled by North Korea making fun of, intelligence failure by South Korean military because it will be walking into the trap set by North Korea, which will create the tension among security partners and conjure up very negative domestic public opinion toward the South Korean military and the government.
Now, as you've mentioned, U.S. President Trump continues to downplay North Korea's missiles. He initially at first called them very standard. And later on, he tweeted that Kim Jong-un will do the right thing because he is too smart not to, and he does not want to disappoint me with a violation of trust. How do you see these remarks?
Well, I mean, President Trump seems to still hope to leave just enough amount of space for Kim Jong-un to make the kind of choice that are very constructive to the United States and North Korea as well, meaning the final and fully verified denuclearization at the right price for the United States. So the question is, how much space should be left to Chairman Kim Jong-un in order for him to make the right decision with regard to, the piled, important agendas lying between North Korea and the rest of the world. The U.S. Congress has been increasingly concerned about President Trump seemingly leaving too much space for Kim Jong-un, which might only embolden Kim Jong-un to engage in more and more risky provocations to test the resolve of the United States and its security partners. But at the same time, it is very important for the United States to maintain the channel of communication and the opportunity for meaningful working level negotiations, which will eventually lead to another summit meeting between the top leaders. So it's a matter of how much space would be just enough for North Korean leadership to make the kind of decision which is not ruinous but conducive to stability, peace, and eventual denuclearization of North Korea.
I guess we could call that the art of nuclear diplomacy.
Right.
Now, North Korea is openly protesting against South Korea-U.S. joint military drills, but given its hidden agenda, do you expect further provocations from the North?
I'm afraid I should say yes. I read the statement issued by the Foreign Ministry of North Korea, and it is very clear that North Korean authority is in great fear of the U.S. South Korean military drills, and their potential to deter and defeat the North Korean military if, God forbid, any military conflict would arise. That made me think how difficult it will be for the working level meetings between North Korea and the United States to be productive, considering the depth of fear of North Korean leadership about United States attempting to initiate regime change inside North Korea. United States has been assuring North Korean leadership so many times and in many different ways since the times of six-party talks, which is now a distant memory for everyone who has been following North Korean nuclear and missile programs. But if there's nothing to appease North Korean leadership's fear of possible military actions or regime change initiated by the United States, then there is no hope for North Korean leadership to actually lay down its nuclear warheads and intercontinental ballistic missiles as an ultimate means to self-protection from outside aggression. So it'll be a very big obstacle in upcoming working level negotiation between United States and North Korea.
That will always definitely be the fundamental
right.
problem.
The fear of regime change or military aggression by the United States is very subjective. It's not rocket science that can be calculated or negotiated between North Korea and the United States.
Now, U.S. Defense Chief Mark Esper said that he was in favor of deploying ground-launched intermediate-range missiles in Asia soon. Seoul's defense ministry said there have been no discussions on that, and it has no plans to raise the issue. But could his remark become an important variable in future Pyongyang-Washington talks?
Oh, definitely. And we all remember South Korean military and the government used to have the same rhetorics and response to a news report about potential deployment of THAAD, a missile defense system inside South Korea. And the Park Geun-hye administration, the former government of South Korea, maintained a very similar attitude toward the issue of the deployment of THAAD, missile defense system in South Korea, saying that there had not been any official request by North Korea, so United States. So we had no official plan to, plan for the deployment of THAAD system. But voila, when THAAD missile system was deployed in South Korea was hit so hard by economic retaliation by China. Imagine that. If China retaliated South Korea so harshly for the deployment of defense system, missile defense system, not offensive system, what kind of response and retaliation can we expect that will come from China to South Korea if South Korea agrees to deploy short-range and medium-range offensive missile systems of the United States? So it's not a matter of inter-Korean relations or North Korean reaction to this decision by the United States, but it is a key variable for the future relationship between China and South Korea.
Now, the Seoul-Tokyo Bilateral Military Information Sharing Agreement, or GSOMIA, is becoming a hot-button issue amid Japan's continuing trade curbs against South Korea. Do you think South Korea will actually scrap the agreement, though?
Well, you got to call your friends in the Blue House and the Ministry of National Defense for getting answer to this question. Maybe they do not feel your calls because it's such a tricky, politically explosive issue. But I personally think that if South Korea walks away from the annual renewal of GSOMIA with Japan and the United States, I think it's like shooting itself, in the foot, because the main argument made by Moon Jae-in government of South Korea in criticizing Abe administration's decision to take South Korea off the white list for the sake of export control in the name of national security of Japan. South Korean government's argument is that Japan's unreasonable action would only undermine security cooperation among United States, Japan, and South Korea, and greatly disrupt the regional stability and security in Northeast Asia. What's going to happen if South Korea walks away from GSOMIA with Japan and the United States? South Korea will be identified the same way as Japan, because South Korea will be also criticized by Japan and the United States for hurting trilateral security cooperation among three countries, and South Korea's action actually undermines the regional stability and security on the Korean Peninsula and Northeast Asia. So two wrongs do not make one right. I think if South Korea scraps the GSOMIA, then it will hurt its credibility as a reliable security partner for the United States at least.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bong, as always, for your insights tonight.
Very pleased to be here.
And that does it for this edition of News in Depth. From all of us here at Arirang, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow.